Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran with a special guest. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well again today. We are joined once again by Brian Butler. It's the last time that I'm recording as a media intern for the Cape Cod Baseball League. It's certainly very emotional, but it's the last pod, so we decided to have Brian tag along once again.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Yes, great to have you back. It's been 7 days since we've last met. Some things have shaken up in the standings. 7 days since Daniel and I last met. A little longer since we've had Brian on, but some things have shaken up in the standings. We're in that sort of post-trade deadline portion of the season, seeing which teams did the right things, which teams have done the wrong things so far. But a team that kind of sold a little bit, but is rolling really hot right now is the Seattle Mariners. And we were kind of wondering when they were going to get hot. And it turns out it's, been since the start of July that's when they decided to get hot. They've won 25 of their last 35, 13 of their last 15, and also 8 in a row. They're currently on an 8-game win streak. What have you been thinking about the Seattle Mariners?
Yeah, I mean, this is very reminiscent of last season. I believe in 2022, they were 10 games under 500 at one point in May.
Yeah.
And they went on their big 13-game win streak right before the All-Star break. And they kind of took off from there. And it feels like the entire year we've kind of just been waiting for the Mariners to take off because, they've been kind of hovering 500. They've not gotten a lot of production out of their offense. And that's kind of been the largest reason why they've been so well. Over the last 20 games, they are slashing 271, 344, and 479 as a team. That slugging percentage is huge because this is not a team that's particularly known for their power. They have a 131 weighted runs created plus, of 5.3 Fangraphs wins above replacement out of their position players. That's number 4 in the league going back to July 20th and over their last 20 games, which has been, they obviously made some adjustments to the offense during the offseason. They brought in Teoscar Hernandez. They brought in, Colton Wong's not on the team anymore, but that was a guy that they brought in. But, they've gotten a lot of big contributions, specifically from Julio Rodriguez, which is, kind of the guy that they were hoping that would take off eventually.
Right. And going back to the start of July, their pitching has also been unbelievable. They have the best ERA in baseball since the start of July, also the third best FIP, and their bullpen since the start of July particularly has been unbelievable. They have a 2.39 ERA, which leads baseball by more than half a run. Individually in that bullpen, who's particularly been killing it, is a friend of the show, Matt Brash. 16 innings pitched, 1.69 ERA, and 1.70 FIP. By the way, if you want to see our interview with him, you can't because Periscope no longer exists.
It was in one of the first 30 episodes of the show to be named later.
There's no proof of that episode.
Not that we don't want you to see it. It's that they have been wiped off the internet.
Yes. Also, Taylor Saucedo, 14 innings, 0.64 ERA, 2.34 FIP, and Justin Topa, with 13 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 0.66 ERA and 2.17 FIP. So it's been everything, obviously. Like, as you mentioned, their offense is killing it, but also the main strength of that team, which is their pitching, is performing like they should be and above that.
Yeah, and I mean, even stretching it out over the whole season, and not just this most recent stretch where they've been especially dominant, that bullpen really stands out as something that's really been leading this team. You've got their on Baseball Reference, their top 5 relief pitchers. The lowest ERA plus for any of them is Gabe Spire at 116. They've also, Sewell's at 141, Matt Brash 133, Topa 169, and Taylor Saucedo's at 204. They've just been really good at limiting everything. It seems like everyone has a really low FIP. The highest they've got is Saucedo, who has the highest ERA plus, ironically, with 3.15. So just that bullpen's really been an anchor for the Mariners, it seems like all year, and just getting them, the rest of the team really getting going lately has been huge for them.
And that's not even getting into Andres Munoz, who came off the IL a couple months ago and is one of the nastiest relievers that anyone has in the big leagues. And I know he's been terrific over this span and just in general. At least he has the stuff. But I mean, when you look at the Mariners, ever since the kind of this competitive window started for them in 2021, like when their bullpen is going, that's when they're going. Because in 2021, they won 90 games, and that was the fun differential year where they had like a -50 run differential, and they should have lost a lot more games. The reason why that happened was because their offense was kind of a weak spot, and their bullpen was dominant. They were winning a ton of one-run games. They were walking off a lot. If they were leading in the fifth inning, even by a run or so, like the bullpen was going to hold it down. And that's kind of been the theme of Mariners baseball over the last few years now. It's when their bullpen is going, no matter what's going on in offense, it's going to be tough to beat this team. And right now the offense also happens to be going very well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like I think the theme of the team over the past few years is like, if their offense can be just average, they're in a very, very good spot with the amount of talent they have on the pitching side. And their bullpen, they just tend to keep churning out bullpen talent. I don't know what it is. They must have a good development program with, development process with that. Because I mean, since like 2021, they've lost Kendall Graveman, now Paul Sewald, and also Eric Swanson they traded off in the offseason, yet they still dominate.
I remember in 2021, I did a Mariners bullpen How About That, where I highlighted like 5 relievers, and I think most of them are gone now. I remember JT Chajwa was one of them. Yep. He's gone now.
Rice legend
JT Chajwa. He was traded for Diego Castillo straight up. Paul Sewald is obviously gone now. Eric Swanson was one of them. He's gone. Kendall Graveman was one. He's gone. And the fifth one, I'm trying to remember from 2 years ago who it was. Was it Drew Steckenrider? I don't think it was.
It very possibly
was. It might have been. Oh, no, it was. Or no, wait, yeah. Yeah, it might have been Drew Steckenrider, honestly. Because I remember highlighting 5 relievers very specifically.
Right.
And I don't think he's in the organization anymore. So the fact that they've kind of just been bringing guys in and, it's been very much a next man up type thing for the last few years. I mean, you look at who the best producers have been out of that bullpen over the last couple of years, and it's like 2021. It's Drew Steckenrider with the most innings out of the bullpen. Paul Sewald emerging as the closer. There's a lot of names, and then you look to 2022, and it's a whole different group, right? I mean, they had Penn Murphy, who was dominant last year. They had Munoz come up last year.
This year until he got hurt.
Yeah, Diego Castillo was good. Eric Swanson came out as one of the best relievers in the league. Matt Brash emerged a little bit, especially towards the end of the season. This year, it's a lot of the guys you've mentioned: Gabe Spear, Justin Topa, Taylor Saucedo. Matt Brash has taken the much bigger role. Trevor Gott has been in that bullpen this year, and he's a very good FIP. Like every single year, it's like the Rays starting pitching, where it's like every year they'll bring up a guy that no one's heard of that will all of a sudden go on a run. Except the difference is they stay on the team.
Yeah, I was about to fill in there. Except this time they don't get Tommy John surgery 6 months later. The Mariners have a very intriguing bullpen. They've had a very intriguing bullpen for the past few years. One of the best bullpens, if not the best bullpen in baseball, and nothing you want to see in the postseason. However, despite all this run, they are still a game and a half out, a game and a half or 2 games out of the third wild card spot. And this is my proposition to Rob Manfred. We need to take the AL Central winner out of the playoffs and include a 4th wild card spot, because this is ridiculous. We cannot have one of the Blue Jays or Mariners out of the playoffs because we need a spot for the Twins. We just can't have that.
There's going to be a team that's like tanking for the 6th seed. Yeah. I think I've mentioned that on the show before, but it's like, why would you want to be the 5 seed when you could be the 6th seed and play the Minnesota Twins?
Exactly.
Because if you're the 4 seed, you're playing like either the Rays or the Orioles.
Right.
You're playing
Right.
whoever finishes second in the AL East, which you don't want to do that.
Or the
But you want to
Astros,
play the Minnesota Twins.
or the Astros or Rangers.
Yeah, or the
Like,
Astros or Rangers. Like there's going to be a team tagging for that 6th spot. And yeah, I agree with your proposition. We do need a 4th wild card to get
yeah,
rid of the Minnesota Twins.
this is ridiculous because yeah, I mean, like, while the Mariners could take that 3rd wild card spot, that takes out the Blue Jays, and the Blue Jays are also a very fun team who's been doing very well as of recently. Along with that, they've been able to kind of keep a decent pace with the Mariners despite how hot the Mariners have been. So it's kind of a tough situation, but I mean, it's going to make the end of the regular season that much more exhilarating because like the fact that one of these teams, even if it's probably not going to be the Astros, it's probably going to be one of the Mariners or Blue Jays that's going to be out of this race. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, we could see a 93, 94 win team that doesn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
See, also alternatively, what we could, petition for is instead of just taking the Twins out of it entirely, pull like what he did with the 2022 All-Star game and just give like this guy's fun. Like, here you go. Now you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Seattle Mariners because, like it would be a shame if either of those teams getting left out because the Twins, who still could very possibly finish below 500 and win their division, like, or have to be there as the division winner. Have them like play in the first, like, have them do like a game 163 to see who actually gets that spot.
Yeah, I like that. I like that proposition as well. I think the best case scenario here is the Mariners and Blue Jays tie and they play like a one game playoff. If they still have that in the new playoff format, I don't know if they still do. But maybe for a
No,
wild
the
card
game
spot, they
163s aren't a thing.
yeah, not at all, even if it's for a wild card
No,
spot.
they completely abandoned that, which is so sad.
That is that is kind of sad. That is kind of sad. Yeah, so it's unfortunate. I think I mean if you're the Twins, like who would you rather face, the Mariners or the Blue Jays?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Like
by the
it's
way, I
tough.
think the Mariners are merging. It pretty much confirms that the Angels are buried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
they're what, like 11 and a half games out of the division now and like 8 games out of a wild card spot. Like that was
Right.
it's crazy how quickly it was over.
Yeah, no. They didn't even leave us a chance to hope.
Yeah.
There was that
With
one day though.
Yeah, I've got the standings pulled up. The Angels are currently in 4th place. They are 11 and a half games out of the division, 6.5 games out of the wild card. They're 58 and 59 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on I think 8, like something like some crazy losing streak right now.
It looks like they just snapped it.
They won
one
last
game.
night.
So they're 2-8 in their last 10. They're on a 1-game losing streak.
By the way,
right
the
now.
fact that the Mariners have their 8 game win streak at the same time that the Rangers also did the same thing. So
Yeah.
unfortunate for them. Because like if the Rangers went like 6-4 over those 10 games instead of 9-1, like the Mariners are very, very, very much in the division race.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like everyone in that race except for the Angels now, if you can consider them in the race, is keeping pace. Astros are keeping pace, Blue Jays are keeping pace. No one's falling off. It makes it very, very intriguing for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Angels, I mean, that with the Angels, there was that one fun day where they trade for Giolito and Lopez, and then the next day, Shohei Ohtani, he does the complete game shutout, and then he does the home run, and everyone's excited, and then
2 home runs.
and then 2 home runs, and then and then it's over after that. It's kind of sucked.
Yeah, it was such an unfortunate run that
Yeah,
you could even call it a run.
yeah,
swing.
Yeah.
and one thing you could argue was a greater collapse, at least this season. Not the highest of stakes with this organization particularly, but the Arizona Diamondbacks, they have lost 25 of their last 32 for the worst record in baseball by 3.5 games in the span since July 2nd. they're 7-25 in their last 32. What have you been thinking about? What are your kind of takes on the sort of collapse of what was the early arrival Arizona Diamondbacks?
Well, I mean, it's the problem has been any sort of pitching, whether it's starting rotation, whether it's bullpen. They have a 5.85 ERA dating back to July 9th, which is the span in which they are 5-21. They also have a 5.19 FIP that is the highest in Major League Baseball. They have .2 pitcher wins above replacement according to Fangraphs. That is tied with the New York Yankees for the lowest in the league. And they just haven't really gotten the solid production out of anyone. It does look like Zach Gallen is like quite possibly lost the Cy Young race here in this span. He has a 4.60 ERA and a 4.67 FIP over his last 5 starts now. Maybe he hasn't lost the race entirely, but
because no one else is really taking it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not like I don't know who's like the immediate favorite, but he hasn't been very good. The only person that's been good in some capacity is Kevin Ginkel. Ironically, he has 12 innings pitched and 0.75 ERA in the span, 1.93 FIP. Everyone else is okay at best.
Yeah, their bullpen particularly has been atrocious, and not that they came in with a good bullpen, but it's been really bad. In their last 32 games, their bullpen ERA is 6.25, which is also the worst in baseball.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean it is really disappointing to watch because I believe what were they? They were 52-38 at one point. Like
they were
comfortably not just in the wild card race, but also in the division race in a really tough division there. And more than that, just the fact that they were so far ahead of schedule with an incredibly fun young team. Like obviously Corbin Carroll's the big name. He came up, he was playing really well. But then even guys like Alec Thomas, Jake McCarthy's still pretty young. They've got a good young outfield. And then just Gallen when he was really dominant at the start of the year. Just a lot of really fun players to watch that are really easy to root for. And then just they completely fell off the face of the earth, and now they've lost 9 straight.
Yeah, they are indeed on a 9-game losing streak, and it's with this team, it's been like their pitching has been definitely an extremely bad sign, but also in their last 32 games, they have the second lowest amount of runs scored and the third lowest OPS with a 671 OPS. Looking particularly, it's a lot of guys who are kind of outperforming themselves, who have really cooled down, and in particular 3 guys with Corbin Carroll, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., and Geraldo Perdomo, who was an all-star, let's not forget. Corbin Carroll in the Diamondbacks' last 32 games is hitting 223 with a 702 OPS. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hitting 217 with a 677 OPS, and Geraldo Perdomo hitting 223 with a 622 OPS in the Diamondbacks' last 32 games. So I think it's just been an entire team cool-off from a big overperformance in the first 3 months of the season.
Yeah, it is, you always expect somewhat of a regression to the mean, especially with a young team that was playing as well as the Diamondbacks were at the start of the year. But this is more than a regression to the mean. This is more of a complete, they're just falling apart. Like maybe they weren't necessarily going to be a wild card team, but like the fact that they're probably now going to finish fairly comfortably below 500 unless they turn it around is really disappointing because it looked like they were doing everything to take a step in the right direction this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like it would have been an early arrival if they became, a playoff team, especially, they're still 2 years removed from winning only 52 games and losing 110 back in 2021. But yeah, I mean, there's still a lot to be optimistic about with Arizona. They have their farm system has been talked about a lot. They have a lot of highly ranked prospects, which is fantastic for them. A lot of young talent that's still developing. I think pitchers just take a little longer to develop typically, at least in the MLB as of late. There's not, it's going to take a little bit for Brandon Pfaadt and Ryan Nelson to get their feet under them at the big league level. So, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. Still,
By the
even
way,
after this collapse.
if I'm a Diamondbacks fan and have been for like a while now, like I don't know what it's going to take to trust a good start at this point, because the last time that they had a start like this was 2018. If you remember, they had like the best record in the National League after April. They were 20-8. They were actually 47-34 after June 28th. They were 53-44 at the All-Star break, and they finished the season 82-80 because they completely collapsed in August and September. In kind of the same fashion that we're seeing now. In the month of September specifically, let me pull up the record. This was 2018, by the way, the last time that they kind of looked competitive for the majority of the season. In September of that year, they went 8-19. And also, yeah, I mean, they just completely fell off the face of the earth in that month. And then also in 2019, they were kind of sneaking towards a playoff spot in September, and then they also collapsed. They had like a 7-game losing streak in September, from September 8th up until the 13th or so.
Right. And with how bad the team has turned over the last month, I wonder how it might affect the offseason plans, because maybe if they did better this year, maybe when they snuck into a playoff spot, maybe the ownership and front office would be more apt to build the team around the prospects, sign more free agents, because we know the Diamondbacks have the ability to do that. They've done that before. It's just they choose their windows to do that. So I'm wondering if maybe it slows that process down of getting free agents or making, win now trades.
And another sort of frustrating thing, if you're a Diamondbacks fan, has to be that they did promote most of their top prospects this past year. So just looking at their system right now, they still have Jordan Lawler, who's just ranked the 10th best prospect in baseball by MLB Pipeline. He's hitting really well in Double-A right now. He'll probably be up maybe like a September call-up, but also probably just some point next year. But other than that, their top 5 prospects, Drew Jones, who, drafted last year out of high school. He won't be around for a while. Brandon Pfaadt's already on the MLB roster. Tommy Troy was just drafted this year.
Yeah.
MLB.com
was he a former cable leaguer?
He was. He played for Wareham in 21 and Katuitt in 22.
Gotcha.
He won the home run hitting contest in 2022.
I thought Lyle Miller Green did.
You're right. He beat Tommy Troy in the finals. Yeah. I don't know why I wasn't
even here.
Yeah, I brain farted on that. I knew he was in the finals. For some reason I thought he won for a second. I have a ball actually that he hit into the parking lot at Wareham.
Nice.
Yeah, but MLB.com has his ETA at 2026. I think that's a bit,
MLB.com, I think, usually does overestimate. They don't underestimate them. They usually overestimate their ETAs.
I do think he'll be up before that because he's one of the best pure hitters I've seen especially at the collegiate level, and then here. And then finally, their last top 5 prospect is Yumin Lin, a left-handed pitcher. They've got him at 2025. Unless they make some significant moves in the offseason to really sort of tool up and make a run next year, there's not necessarily a ton of help coming up through their minor league system. So it is going to be really interesting to see what they do here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, anything more on the Diamondbacks before we move on?
I think that was it. I mean, they're still, how far are they behind the Dodgers now in the division?
A lot.
12.5 games.
Oh, wow. That escalated so quickly. I know
that really got out of hand fast.
Yeah.
On July.
Also, the NOS is like basically over now because the Giants have also started losing some games.
Yeah, entering July 2nd, the Diamondbacks were up 3 games in the NL West, and now they are 12.5 back. So they've lost 15.5 games in the division in this stretch.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Shout out to we will play 500 ball, 45 and 71 Rockies at the bottom of the NL West.
I mean, it's still possible. They could win 90. They could win 91 games. They could win 91 games.
If they win at the same pace the Diamondbacks have been losing,
Yeah, watch out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they might play 500.
This is bad that
exactly.
that's like better than I thought.
Um, so one thing we haven't gotten to yet was one thing we actually forgot to talk about last episode was Framber Valdez's no hitter. I mean, we're not going to talk about it now because it's old news, but shout out to Framber Valdez because he had an amazing no hitter that featured no
Deserved it.
batted balls above a 420 expected batting average. I mean, that was a true blue 100% well earned no hitter. The ground god. Also, 7 strikeouts in that one with only 1 walk. So shout out to Framber Valdez for his amazing no hitter. But another
I love
individual no
that. I
hitter
love that
happened.
when the no hitter happens now, like we automatically degrade it. It's like, yeah, it's a good no hitter, like actually a good no hitter, because of course, like there have been some that are just simply not to par and should not have come to pass.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm the no hitter Debbie Downer here. I cannot,
You're the
I know that
gatekeeper of no hitters.
there's a lot of luck involved. You can't unless you strike out 27 batters or unless you strike out at least like 25 batters, you cannot have an a no hitter without some luck. But some are going to be a lot luckier than others. Shout out to Tyler Gilbert. But anyway, Michael Lorenzen, he threw a no hitter this past Wednesday or Thursday, and he had 5 strikeouts, 4 walks, a lot of pitches thrown. But in general, just knowing what Michael Lorenzen does, how he kind of handles himself, how he seems to be with the media. Not that I know him personally, but it seems like someone you're happy for to have a no hitter like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is that specifically is for Brian to talk about.
Yeah, actually, just when I was a kid, I believe he came up. Let me look real quick. He came up in 2015 with the Reds. Yeah, he came up in 2015 with the Reds. Mostly as a starter until he got to LA last year. That was the only season he mostly worked as a starter. But he was one of my favorite players as when I was, like 13 years old. And I could never really place why. Just he always seemed like a really genuinely nice person who really like cared a lot about what he was doing. He was a starter for a year or so, moved to the bullpen, was a really like strong reliever on a lot of really bad Reds teams. And it's really nice to see him having this level of success right now because like one of my personal like little personal story here. I mentioned he was one of my favorite players. I got the like as a birthday present one year, I got the like Michael Lorenzen like the t-shirt jersey. And I wore it to like every game I went to just because I loved this guy. And the Reds have their like annual fan fest every year in December. And I'm pretty sure this was 2015. It may have been 2016. I used to go with my dad every year. I went there and I brought the shirt with me and waited in line. And like, it's Michael Lorenzen, who wasn't like a huge name on the team at the time, but granted, the 2015 Reds didn't exactly have a lot of huge names that they didn't trade at the deadline. Um, so, I wait in line, get this shirt signed. Everyone else has like, pictures or like cards, stuff like that. And I go up there with the shirt and he just looks at me and I can see this like genuine like shock on his face. He's like, "You bought my shirt?" I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know, because it was baffling to me, like, why wouldn't anyone? But he was like genuinely grateful that I had his shirt and would wear it to games and he signed it for me. And I just like that's been something that's stuck with me for a while. And just like he's a really great person. He's having a very strong year this year. Since he got traded to the Phillies, made 2 starts. Obviously the no-hitter. The other one against the Marlins, he went 8 innings, gave up 2 earned, 1 walk. Like he's had an incredible year. And for me personally, it's just so much fun to watch because I loved watching him pitch. I loved watching him hit too. I've seen him hit, I want to say 4 home runs in person back when he was with the Reds. Unfortunately, that's something he doesn't do anymore, but that was always really fun to watch. Yeah, no, just really, really, really special for me personally to see him having this level of success now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it seemed like this was obviously a no hitter that I think everyone was rooting for, especially if you kind of can't, especially from a Reds background for you, being able to, see him get the spotlight that, he deserves. And yeah, it was very nice to see. He had his family there, which, obviously appeals to the emotions of everyone. They had the video on them. That was really cool. Just overall, I mean, the game in general was also unbelievable because, one guy, it was his first major league at bat. He had been in the majors for 7 years, or been in the minors for 7 years, excuse me. And first at bat hits a home run. And then Nick Castellanos also had his 200th home run, 200th career home run. So just an overall wild course of events going on in that game.
Yeah, I mean, just looking more specifically at Lorenzen and kind of what was working for him, the correct answer is everything. He threw his fastball 42 times out of the 124 pitches he threw. By the way, 124 pitches is quite a lot in 2023, especially for a guy who used to be a reliever. But his fastball had a 29% called strike and whiff percentage, his changeup 27%, his slider 31%. And that makes up most of, I think, all but like 16 of the pitches that he threw. So everything he was throwing, like a lot, was very effective that night for him. More specifically, he had a whiff rate of 44% on his changeup, which is not exactly most known to be the best pitch for getting whiffs. It's definitely not the worst pitch, but it's definitely not the best one, especially when you see that his slider only had a 13%. So his changeup was really effective for him that night. He threw it 37 times. And his four-seamer, obviously, he got weak contact on. He got a lot of whiffs, got a lot of called strikes as well.
Right. Yeah, it was a solid performance. I know he really threw a lot of pitches in like the first 2 or 3 innings and kind of found himself probably with all those pitches, found the zone a little bit more, and yeah, worked up to a no-hitter. Pretty crazy, in 2023 to see 2 individual no-hitters in almost the same week, like 2 weeks in a row. You get 2 individual no-hitters. So we're at what, 3 now?
3 now.
4 now on the season?
I think it's 3.
With the Detroit combined one.
Yeah, Detroit combined.
Detroit did have a combined no-hitter.
That was weird.
And then Miguel Herman as well.
Oh, right, I forgot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it is 4.
Yeah,
4
4.
individual ones.
Yeah, 3 individuals.
I feel like there was
yeah,
another combined one they were missing.
Look.
I don't know. Combined no-hitters are so forgettable.
They are very much. Except I'll never forget the Cubs one, just
Tyler
because of
Skaggs. Yeah.
The Cubs one was so funny.
It was so mid.
The Tyler Skaggs one was the only like cool one, and I guess the Astros World Series one, just based on the fact that it was in the World Series.
Yes.
Yeah, it is 4 this year. There was the combined Tigers one on July 8th, but
That's the only combined one this year?
correct.
Okay.
Anything more before we get into players to highlight?
Let's do it.
All right, so now we will get into our Saturday, August 12, 2023 edition of How About That?
He's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
He is getting a...
How about that?
All right, Brian, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure if this is someone that you guys have mentioned at all recently. Unfortunately, he's actually hurt right now, which is somewhat disappointing for me when I found this. But my how about that is Chas McCormick of the Houston Astros.
I think that makes 3 of us, right?
Yeah,
No,
so,
I never picked him, so
You did not. I did.
yeah.
yeah. So last 30 days, granted he is hurt right now, and I'm not quite sure how long he's been hurt for. Chas McCormick has a 195 weighted runs created plus. He's not necessarily like known as the biggest power guy. He's hit 7 home runs in the last month. He's driven in he's scored 19 runs, driven in 20. Walk rate's at 16%, which solid. Strikeouts are pretty high, but he does do that. BABIP indicates that he is probably getting fairly lucky at 429. but he's got, he's slugging 654. He's got a 432 on base. Like I mentioned, the 195 weighted runs created plus, eighth in wins above replacement in the last month with 1.5 according to Fangraphs. And also his name is Chaz, so that's pretty fun. Definitely, I get back to school in Houston a week from tomorrow, so I'm very much looking forward to getting back down to the Astros park. The Red Sox are coming to town like the first week I'm there, so I'll definitely have to go check that out. And hopefully Chas McCormick will be healthy because he's been playing really well lately.
Yeah, Chas McCormick.
How about that?
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think I talked about his like fastballs, like he destroys them right now. When I talked about him.
also a
My
high
how
line
about
drive rate.
Yeah, my how about that comes from the AL East. I'm talking about Yusei Kikuchi from the Toronto Jays because he's been pretty dominant on the mound. Over his last 5 starts, he has a 1.24 ERA and a 2.40 FIP with no home runs given up over 5 starts. His ERA leads the majors in this span, and his 1.1 FWAR is tied for the major league lead. This is over, again, 5 starts, about a month in time, which is very impressive, obviously. Before this span, he had a ground ball rate of 37.3%, and in this span, he has risen it up to 53.2%. That is almost a 20% increase in ground ball rate from Yusei Kikuchi. And more importantly, in that span, his fly ball rate has also gone from 29.5% to just 16.9%. So he's been giving up a lot more ground balls, and it's taking away from fly balls, which for a pitcher like him that isn't known for striking out a lot of guys, that is everything. That is huge that he's been doing that. And also, out of the 13 fly balls he's given up, 12 of them have been below the hard hit threshold or above 40 degrees. Which that means even when hitters hit fly balls against him, they're not the right kind of contact. They're either too high or they're not hit hard enough to go over the fence. And in essence, they are outs every time. During this span, his barrel rate has gone from 10.8% to just 2.6%. He's only given up 2 barrels over his last 5 games, which is obviously another huge thing. And during this span, 10.4% of his batted balls have been hard hit and in the sweet spot. That is a very low number. That is the 8th lowest rate among the 141 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls against them. And additionally, 41.6% of his batted balls across the span have been 0 degrees or lower. And that is the 13th highest rate on that aforementioned list of 141. And before this span, it was just 29.5% of his batted balls that were 0 degrees or below. So Yusei Kikuchi has been excellent with ground ball rate over his last 5 games. He's not giving up a lot of fly balls, and even when he does, it's not the right kind of contact. And that's why he's been so dominant over his last 5.
Yusei Kikuchi.
How about that?
Yeah, and before the season and before last season, when you talked about the Blue Jays rotation, you thought, okay, Gausman, Manoah, Barrios, like there you go. And then Kikuchi's very much the forgotten guy, very much a 5-starter, but looking like a 1-starter in his last 5 starts. Very cool. My how about that comes from the NL Central. I'm talking about Mike Tauchman of the high-flying Cubs, who are kind of emerging into the playoff race, especially in the NL Central. Mike Tauchman, in his last 15 games, is hitting .413 with an 1177 OPS. Out of 177 qualifiers in the span, his average ranks 7th, on-base percentage ranks 10th, and OPS ranks 8th out of 177. And out of 222 hitters with 25 plus batted balls in the span, his expected batting average ranks 13th. So he's expected to do well based on the quality of contact, strikeout rate, and walk rate. Along with that, his strikeout rate has gone from 21% before the span to 13% in the span. And out of 177 qualifiers, his strikeout rate ranks 23rd lowest, and his walk to strikeout rate ranks 15th. He has 1 walk for every strikeout, which is a very good rate, near the top of all of baseball, and has made some good improvements with his quality of contact. His hard hit rate has gone from 36% before the span to 50% in the span. His line drive rate has gone from an already good 29% to now 35%. And out of 222 hitters, his line drive rate ranks 23rd. That is near top 10% in line drive rate. Along with that, his hard hit line drive rate has gone from 14% to 20%. And out of 222 hitters, his hard hit line drive rate ranks 33rd. So Mike Tauchman, part of the streaking Cubs right now, he is hitting the ball harder. He's hitting the ball more, lowering his strikeout rate, and he is hitting more line drives, at an elite level. So he is getting a.
How about that?
And that shall do it for the positive remarks about players or subjects. And now we will go from the highs to the lows, where we're talking players or subjects that have been underperforming with our Saturday, August 12, 2023 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start out again. My slightly alarming statistics is Tony Gonsolin of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Didn't really realize until I was going through to figure out who I wanted to talk to here that he actually had a very strong start to the year. He had a really good April and May, but since June got underway, he's really started to go downhill a bit. So now on the year, he's got 4.42 ERA, a 4.87 FIP, 5.13 xFIP. His ground ball rate's down. His home run to fly ball rate is up from last year. And of course, last year he was an all-star. He had a very strong season with the Dodgers. But yeah, he's never been a guy that strikes out a ton of batters except for 2021. But he's down over a full strikeout per 9. He's up a full walk per 9. His strand rate's going down like significantly. It was roughly 84% last year. It's now 68% for this year. He just has like I mentioned, he started out very well. He was very good in April and May. But since June 1st, his ERA has gone from 1.95 up to 4.42. I mentioned it was as it sits right now. He is starting tonight against the Colorado Rockies, so maybe that'll help him out a little bit, help him get back on the right track. But as of right now, Tony Gonsolin has been sort of spiraling out of control for the past borderline 3 months.
Yeah, Tony Gonsolin.
Slightly alarming.
Especially with all the starting pitcher injuries with the Dodgers. It kind of stinks that he's been unable to produce, but we know the Dodgers, they have 11 guys lined up to take any role to do well at any point, at any position.
Somehow none of them are my player to watch, Gavin Stone.
Nope.
Somehow I missed. Yeah, this is a conversation for another day, but I'm putting up Chris 2021 numbers with my players to watch this year.
Would be the worst Gavin on the highlight for this year.
You're right. Yeah. Can we fill Brian in on your 2021 players to watch?
Yeah, I got
love to hear.
Just off the top of my head, I got a couple bangers. So what takes the cake is Tim LeCastro, DFA'd by the Diamondbacks, who, as we mentioned before, lost 110 games in 2021, but they were like, hey, we still don't need Tim LeCastro. And I had him as my player to watch. Along with that, we had Tanner Rainey, who I think had like a 7 FIP or a 7 ERA that year.
Was that following the straight up Tanner for Tanner trade?
I don't think no, because it was after 2020, and Tanner Rainey had a good 2020. But
was one of my favorite things in recent baseball memory, especially as a Reds fan, when the Reds traded the Nationals straight up Tanner Rainey for Tanner Roark. I believe it was 2021. Actually.
No, he was.
Or was it?
He was a Blue Jay in 2020. I remember. So I think it would have been a different time. You also had Oscar Mercado from Cleveland, I believe.
Yeah, or that might have been 2020.
Might have been 2020.
Yeah, I would have to go back to the doc, but I mean, Tim LeCastro definitely takes the cake there. But I remember we do our hits and flops at the end of each year, and in 2021 I had 4 mild hits and 8 flops.
To be fair, no flop that you had in 2021 was worse than my Carlos Hernandez in 2022.
Yeah, it's.
Let me Let me give you the rundown on that. So in 2022, I put Carlos Hernandez as my Kansas City Royals player to watch in a year where they had Vinny Pasquantino breakout, in a year where MJ Melendez started to look promising, in a year where Nick Prado had some moments, in a year where Bobby Witt Jr. was coming up as a prospect. I put Carlos Hernandez. You know why I put him? Because if you look at his baseball savant page between 2020 and 21, he completely changed up his pitch usage where like he used his sinker like 80% of the time in 2020 and then his four seam fastball 20%. And then the next year in 2021, it was like completely flipped. It was like four seamer 80%, sinker 20% or whatever. So there was like a big X on his baseball savant like pitch usage chart, right? And I was like, this is interesting. Like this guy, kind of changed up his arsenal. Like he throws really hard. Like I'm kind of see like what path he goes down this year, and kind of
It wasn't a good one.
even better. I'll do you one better. I checked back at the end of the year, and there must have been some sort of input error because the X was completely gone. He was throwing his four seamer consistently every single year. The entire reason why I put him down did not any longer exist on Baseball Savants, and he had a 7 ERA.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah, so that's the greatest flop that there's ever been.
Yeah. I felt bad. I mean, why would Mike Petriello put you in a position like that?
Yeah, what the
It's
hell?
fully his responsibility.
I was gonna see that too.
Yeah, exactly.
What's funny is he's actually like doing kind of well this year too.
Yeah, no, he was highlighted because he's facing the Red Sox and he's like their closer right now. Pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
he's actually like kind of not bad right now. Anyway, my slightly alarming. I'm using one of the longest sample sizes that we've had in a while. I'm talking about Willy Adames of the Milwaukee Brewers, who just hasn't been himself for really this entire year, but specifically going back to April 23rd, which is subtracting like the first 3 weeks of the season where he was actually pretty good. But since April 23rd, he is slashing 183, 265, 357, 622 for a 68 weighted runs created plus. His average OBP, OPS, and weighted runs created plus all rank in the bottom 6 among the 145 qualifiers, which means that he's getting everyday playing time at short, and he's one of the worst hitters in the league. During the span, he has an average exit velocity of 86.6 miles per hour, which is down 2 miles per hour from last year. Anytime you have a 2 mile per hour drop in exit velocity, that's not good as a hitter. It doesn't matter if it's like 94 to 92 or 88 to 86. That's always not a good sign. And also during the span, 21% of his batted balls have been 80 miles per hour or lower and 10 degrees or lower. So that means it's a very softly hit ground ball. 21% of the time, that's what he's doing. And that is the 12th highest rate among the 148 batters with at least 200 batted balls. Specifically, he's had a lot of trouble against sliders this year. After he had a run value of 10 against sliders in 2022, it is down to just -7 this year. And that ranks 195th among the 204 hitters with at least 50 plate appearances ending on sliders. And also 25% of his batted balls this year have been 30 degrees or higher and below the hard hit threshold. That means it's 30 degrees in the air and 94 miles per hour or less. And that's almost always an out. And that is the 16th highest rate on that same list of 148. He has 56 such balls in the span, and he is 0 for 56. So Willy Adames has been hitting the ball into the ground too much, hitting the ball in the air too much, and at the same time, he's not hitting the ball hard. And for that reason, he is getting a slightly alarming from me.
Yeah. Willy Adames.
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, I mean, at least he's got the defense, I guess. I know he's had enough.
He is 94th percentile in outs above average, which is good.
Yeah, because I know he has over 1 win above replacement thanks to our league. But yeah, my slightly alarming. We're keeping it in the NL Central. NL Central, we got Brian on. We're saying, hey, we are highlighting NL Central players, whether good or bad. And my slightly alarming is Mitch Keller. In his last 5 starts, it's been an emergency because he has a 9.11 ERA. Sorry about that. That was really cheesy. But he does have a 9.11 ERA, in his last 5 starts, along with a 6.52 FIP and 2.7 home runs per 9 in 26 2/3 innings pitched. Out of 77 qualifiers in this span, his FIP is 4th worst, home runs per 9 is 3rd worst, and ERA is the worst out of 77 qualifiers. Out of 120 pitchers with 300 plus pitches thrown in the span, his expected batting average is 2nd worst, expected slugging is 9th worst, and expected WOBA is 3rd worst. And when you break it down to the 41 pitchers with 400 pitches thrown, his expected slugging is 2nd worst, and his expected batting average and expected WOBA are both the worst in baseball. Along with all that, Mitch Keller's strikeout rate has gone from 27% before the span to 19% in the span. Largely, it's not even a problem of him getting less swings and misses. He's just getting to that 2-strike count less. He has gone from getting to a 2-strike count in 57% of his batters faced to 47% of his batters faced. He's also allowing harder contact, with his average exit velocity going from 86.5 miles per hour to 88.8 miles per hour. A big problem has been the ball is not getting on the ground. His ground ball rate has gone from 48% to 34%, which is alarmingly low, especially with how good that rate was before the span. And his sweet spot rate against has gone from 36% to 44%. We've talked about the significance of the sweet spot before. Hitters slug about 590 and slug almost 1100 when they hit it in the sweet spot zone, which is between 8 and 32 degrees of launch angle. And out of 126 pitchers with 50 plus batted balls against, Keller's sweet spot rate against is 7th highest. He also has his line drive rate has also gone from 21%, which was very good, to 35%, which is very bad. And out of 126 pitchers, his line drive rate against is 3rd highest. And if you want to break it down to specific pitches, Mitch Keller has struggled particularly with his cutter, as hitters have gone from slugging 383 against it before the span to 969 against it in the span. Hitters are almost getting a base per at bat against his cutter. And he has gone from having a 57% ground ball rate against his cutter to a 28% ground ball rate against that cutter. So hitters are lifting the ball a lot better, getting much better contact, more line drives, more fly balls, more barrels against that cutter. And he is, after starting the season very, very well and impressing me a lot, he is getting a
Slightly alarming.
So that does it for players highlight. And now we will get into a semi preview of the weekend ahead. In terms of series to watch, go ahead.
As you were doing that, I was checking through all of my players to watch this year. I found like maybe 3 hits.
Okay, yeah. No, mine is the same.
And a lot of not hits.
Yeah, no, mine's the same, because when we break down my hits, it's gonna be like, wow, his OPS plus was raised by 7 points. I mean, he really improved this year.
Yep. Last year I was kind of nice with it. I had Stephen Kwan and Nate Lowe as my top 2 hits.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite predictions ever was in 2022. Chris and I were doing our manager of the year picks ahead of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I picked Chris. You remember who I picked, right?
2022. God.
Yeah.
I'm trying to associate who you predicted highly in 2022. Was it Charlie Montoyo?
That was one of them.
And then NL manager, was it Joe Girardi?
Yep, the 2 guys that got fired midseason.
I think I had the same picks, or at least one of the same picks.
You might have. Yeah, you honestly might have. I don't know if you had Phillies, because I remember being like way high on them in 2022.
Yeah, no, I think I had Montoyo, but not Girardi. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, so anyway, in 2022, both my manager of the year picks got fired midseason.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
My shout out to my Cy Young picks this year of Tristan McKenzie and Max Fried, who are going to pitch a combined like 75 innings.
Well, it just goes to, with the manager of the year stuff, it just goes to show you what a stupid award it is. Because like the year that Rick Renteria got fired, he was a finalist for manager of the year. Meanwhile, like if if someone were a finalist for Cy Young, they're not getting DFA'd. That's
No.
not ever going to be a thing.
And none of that, but it's not even like people disagreed with firing Rick Renteria.
No, it
Like
wasn't
they're like
controversial at all.
you can't, like how many baseball fans were like, "Oh my God, they fired this guy. He was just a finalist for Manager of the Year. What are they doing?"
It's like, I don't know how much you guys follow basketball, but the year Dwayne Casey won Coach of the Year with the Raptors and they got fired. Like, he might have been fired before the award was announced, but he got fired and won Coach of the Year.
That is extremely funny.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that does it for players to highlight. We have a semi
You think I
preview.
genuinely, do you think any managers in Major League Baseball would care if they just abandoned that award entirely?
No,
I think less than like 30% of them would care.
I think
Also, I
Bob,
think 100% EBWAA writers would be okay with it as well.
Bob Melvin could win 15 more managers of the year. He would trade all of them for a World Series. That's
Yes.
all they care about. And rightfully
Yeah.
so.
Also, like shout out to the year that like Mike Schilt won it over Davey Martinez, even though Davey Martinez like led them past the 1931 record.
right.
Never mind
Exactly.
the fact that he went on to win the World Series.
And also they
Shout
won
out to
they also won like 11 more games than they did the year before
yup.
the
Shout out
Nationals.
to and also they lost Bryce Harper.
Yeah,
Shout out to when Paul Molitor won it for the Twins and then got fired the next year.
that's an example. Yeah, that's a very good example. Very good example.
That's absolutely happened more than once, too. Like,
That's-
that has to
that's-
happen
yeah.
fairly often.
I'm pretty sure Kevin Cash has won it the last. No, he won in 2020 and 21, right? I think. I don't
Correct.
know. Yeah, who won
Correct.
it last year then?
It was Francona.
Yeah.
It was
And Buck
Francona
Showalter.
and Buck Showalter. Yeah, yeah, it's 2004 again.
All right. Well, I mean, with the preview of the weekend ahead, I mean it's already started, but just to highlight some series you can watch, there are two really good ones out of the West. You got Mariners, Orioles, so you got the hottest team in the AL versus the team with the best record in the AL, which is a very good series. And then also in San Fran, you have the San Francisco Giants hosting the Texas Rangers, both in their respective heated playoff races. So check both those out. They both have a couple games left on tap.
There's also like a lot of animosity between those teams because the Rangers won revenge for 2010.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Ezekiel Duran just cannot stop thinking of the image of Brian Wilson with the
Really
with the fingers up after the after winning the World Series. Like Josh.
Every player.
Sorry.
You know who also like really wants revenge for that? Bruce Bochy.
They actually have every single player on the Rangers has the picture of the Dodgers like on the field, like framed in their locker hanging up.
Yeah.
It was Bochy's idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Bruce Bochy's homecoming weekend. I guess that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I just know Josh Young just has that image of Nelson Cruz swinging and missing at that high fastball just stuck in his head from when Josh Young was like 13 years old. Yeah, so probably even younger. That shall do it for. Or do you want to get into starting pitching matchups?
Yeah. Tonight. Well, there's only one. Oh, never mind. It's a doubleheader. I was gonna say I thought there was only one day game today, but there's not. Tonight's in the second end of the Mets Braves doubleheader. I'm not gonna go for the matchup in the early game. You can look that up if you want to. But Spencer Strider and Jose Quintana will face each other at 7:15 tonight. Justin Steele and Chris Bassett will face each other in Cubs Blue Jays. That one starts at 3 p.m. in the Rogers Center. Brian Bayo will be pitching for the Red Sox against the Tigers tonight at Fenway. Gavin Williams will be pitching tonight for Cleveland. He's been pretty awesome. You should look at his numbers if you haven't seen him. Michael King will be, I guess, opening for the Yankees against Sandy Alcantara in Yankees Marlins. Pablo Lopez and Taiwan Walker will face each other in Twins Phillies. I'm sorry, I'm skipping Brandon Williamson.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. Tyler Anderson and JP France will face each other in Angels Astros. Brandon Woodruff will be facing the White Sox for the Brewers. That's in Chicago. Rich Hill and Zach Gallen will face each other in Padres and Diamondbacks. Cole Irvin and George Kirby will face each other in Orioles Mariners. And matchup of the night for tonight, I'm going to go with the Rangers Giants series that we're all anticipating. Andrew Heaney versus Alex Cobb.
Yeah, it's a good
Tough
good
day.
matchup.
Tough day to be a ground ball for the home team, and tough day to be a fly ball for the away team.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And then on Sunday, Eduardo Rodriguez makes his return to Fenway Park for the 12 p.m. game. He'll be facing Cutter Crawford for the Red Sox. Luke Weaver, that's Brian's
Let's
guy.
go. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
We'll be facing Mitch Keller. Chris is slightly alarming. Sonny Gray and Ranger Suarez will face each other in Twins Phillies. Jamison Tyon and Hyunjin Ryu will face each other in Cubs Blue Jays. Tanner Bybee and Zach Eflin will face each other in Guardians Rays. Garrett Cole and Yuri Perez. That is a cool matchup. That is fun.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm excited for that one. Dane Dunning and Logan Webb. Tough day to be a fly ball in that game. Just a real tough day to be a fly ball in Dane
Yes.
Dunning versus Logan.
That is a great matchup.
I'll never forget our reaction to seeing Logan Webb and Framber Valdez facing each other. By the way,
I've
was-
told you I was.
I know.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
glorious. Yeah,
It was-
heading into that game, I think it had been like since the start of 2022, they had literally the most ground balls allowed in baseball, in that span.
Yeah. I wanted to like put on a suit and tie and watch that game. Just watch some ground balls.
I was actually lucky enough to be in attendance for that game back in Houston. It was like the first weekend of May, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
That's
We were
that's
still
just
in campus.
amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
I would have paid top dollar for that, even to sit in the nosebleeds. Anyway, Julio Urias will be facing the Rockies for the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. And I just clicked off the tab by accident. Oops. Seth Lugo and Brandon Fod will face each other in Padres Diamondbacks in Arizona. Kyle Bradish and Bryce Miller. Fun matchup there. A couple of young guys that have been very under the radar. Kodai Senga will be facing the Braves for the Mets on Sunday Night Baseball against Yanni Chirinos. And matchup of the afternoon comes from Brewers versus White Sox. It's Freddie Peralta versus Dylan Cease.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, a lot of strikeouts in that one, most likely. That shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enjoy all the content there, whether it be YouTube Shorts, whether it be our baseball history series that is in the playlist section, whether it be the guest interviews, most recently with Mike Petriello. Those are all playlists on our YouTube channel. Go subscribe there. It is called Above Replacement Radio.
Wait, we gotta ask Brian the question, by the way.
Oh yeah, all right, we could do that.
Have I told you the question?
You did like the first week we moved in
I
here,
did
but
do that.
I have like forgotten what it is. I remember you asking. I don't remember what it is.
All right. So the question that we ask all of our guests is, if you could obtain all of the StatCast data for any player in baseball history pre-2015, who would you go with?
Oh yeah, I do remember this now. I have like a vague memory of what I said. I think I gave like 4 answers. I didn't really give a
Yeah.
singular one just because
You can't just give a singular one, but that's what we're asking for.
That's such a. I'm gonna take out dead ball players just because I feel like that'd be boring.
That's where I thought you were going. I'm not gonna
No.
lie.
Like, see, it'd be cool. It'd be interesting just to see what the game was like back then, how hard people were actually hitting the ball. But like, if you led the league with 0.3 home runs per 9, like as a pitcher, like having the highest, that isn't like particularly interesting for batted ball data in my mind. I feel there was an answer that immediately came to my mind, but I feel like it feels a little too easy to me. But I'm gonna say it anyway. I'm gonna say Josh Gibson.
Yep.
Just because statistically the Negro Leagues are so vastly underrepresented to begin with. But like you hear all of these like basically urban legends at this point about Josh Gibson like hitting baseballs like 600 feet or like, just all of the absolutely bonkers stuff he would do as a baseball player. Unfortunately, he also passed away way too soon. But I think he is, I believe, technically the all-time home run leader based on official like American.
Is it?
I don't know. I might just be making that up. There's a
We
good
we
chance.
could confirm that with Statcast.
Yeah, exactly. But I know he had some absolutely ludicrous years like playing in those leagues.
The
So,
Homestead Grays.
yes, sir. So just to see how hard he was actually hitting baseballs, and I mean he was a catcher too, so even like some of the catcher metrics that we could get on him, I think would be really interesting. I'm gonna go with Josh Gibson.
Yeah, I think that's the first repeat answer we've gotten because one of our professors also said Josh Gibson when we had her on.
Yep, indeed. He was number 8 on my list of top 10. Because yeah, I mean there's a lot of intriguing stuff with that, and also with that, it would be interesting to like see maybe how we would compare to, like percentile wise, how we would compare to like the MLB, like what was considered the MLB at that point. And see like, oh, maybe he was hitting it harder than everybody else in the MLB. That would be very interesting. So yeah, if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. Brian, what do you got for social media?
Follow me on Twitter at Brian Butler 225, and then on Instagram is Brian Butler 15.
Yes, go follow those. And yeah, if you we hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.